Hi everyone, my name is Charlotte, and today I want to talk to you about food. Now, you might have noticed that I make a lot of videos about gardening and healthy eating and things that I cook, and it occurred to me that I've never really given a proper explanation as to why I care about these things so much, so I thought I would do that today. This is just me personally, of course. The information that I give you, you should research yourself. Obviously, don't take my story as, something that is going to be the same for you. Everyone's body is different. I have extremely sensitive skin. From a really young age, I suffered with really terrible extreme eczema, which is like skin rashes. And then after having my children, I started suffering really badly with cystic acne. I never really got acne when I was in high school or like at the typical teenage years. But when I was in like my mid-20s, like all of a sudden it started coming on like out of nowhere. So now I grew up on an organic farm, and it was basically always around fruit and vegetables being grown, right there on the property. And I had a pretty good idea of, like what's healthy eating. Now, there were times in my life where I didn't eat so well, like we ate a lot of processed food when I was younger. And then, as we started doing more research, this is my family, of course. As we started doing more research, we kind of started caring more about the things that we were getting from the grocery store. For a while, we did the Atkins diet, which is a low-carb diet. From there, I had lost a lot of weight when I was younger. My grandmother had cancer before I was born. She had breast cancer. And as a result of that, she and my grandfather came back to his family's farm. And it had been a dairy farm previously, but when his parents both passed away, my grandfather's parents both passed away, they decided to convert it into an organic vegetable farm because they wanted to help my grandmother heal from her cancer treatments. She survived the breast cancer, probably largely due to that change in diet that she made. So they were kind of one of the founding members of the organic food movement in our state, Connecticut, which is where I'm from. And so they played a really big role in sort of getting the whole organic department or the organic association started in Connecticut. So yeah, they're kind of big players in that, and they remained a certified organic farm until just a few years ago when my grandfather, he fell and he broke his hip, and it kind of got harder for him to keep up with all the work, so they decided to stop being certified organic, and they're kind of just like not doing anything now. My parents are helping him, and they're converting it into like a organic lavender and herb farm. But anyway, so I grew up around organic vegetables. But when I was probably like around third or fourth grade, I started going to a local school. Being exposed to the other school children, they were eating all like the typical American, processed packaged foods. And I started putting on weight. And it just gradually got worse and worse till I was in middle school. Probably around 8th grade or so, like I was at my heaviest ever. Actually, right now I weigh less than I did then when I was like in 8th grade. And so when I went to high school, I started being really self-conscious about my weight, and like of course I had this eczema skin issue that just like wouldn't go away no matter what. We saw countless dermatologists, doctors, you name it, anything. I was looked at by so many different specialists and people from all over the place in all different like disciplines. I like went to like a energy healing doctor at one point, and like a psychic doctor. I saw like a Wiccan, like a herbalist in Massachusetts at one point, up in Salem of all places. Anyway, but nothing we did worked. And so after we went on the Atkins diet when I was in 9th grade, I lost a lot of weight, which was good. And I did maybe notice some skin improvements, but after a little while, you know, if I would eat processed, packaged, non-organic foods from the grocery store, I noticed that my skin would start flaring up. So we decided to, I went vegetarian for a while. I didn't eat meat for most of high school. And I ate, you know, mostly the vegetables that we were growing at the farm. And, you know, when it was off season, we would try to get organic as much as possible from the grocery store and just kind of shop on the outsides of the aisles. That's like a tactic you can use to avoid, you know, all the processed foods and make things as much from scratch. When I was in high school too, I really got into cooking. My grandmother had also been running an organic bakery, so I grew up helping her there. And she passed away when I was in 10th grade. And so I took over the bakery just as like a summer part-time job. And so, you know, I naturally started to become more curious about cooking and baking from scratch. So that's really where I found my passion for food. By the time I was in college, like, I would say I was pretty, you know, adventurous in my cooking. I would make all kinds of things. And then when it came time for me to study abroad in Japan, when I was in my junior year, that's when I fell in love with Japanese cooking. And coming to this country and being exposed to the foods here, the types of recipes that, you know, are pretty typical for home style cooking here, you know, versus what I was used to back home, it was like kind of opening a window to a whole new world that I'd never known before. And so, like, there was all sorts of ways to enjoy vegetables and, you know, other foods that I'd never thought of before. So it was really exciting for me. And I started cooking Japanese style. Now, when I came back from studying abroad in Japan, I unfortunately encountered a health issue with my thyroid, which is like this gland that's here. I had like really low thyroid, so it's called hypothyroidism. I went and saw a naturopathic doctor who basically told me that I should cut out all processed foods, all dairy, all sugar, meat as much as possible, and like focus on only vegetables and fruits. So I did that, and I was able to kind of cure myself to the point where I didn't have to take thyroid replacement therapy. About a year I was on it. But then with this very carefully watching my diet, I was able to get to a point where my levels were good, my thyroid levels were good, and I didn't need to be on the medication anymore. And I confirmed this with blood tests, and I do get blood tests yearly to just check my levels. Anyway, so I no longer considered hypothyroid, and, you know, I'm fine. I had 2 healthy children, and yeah, I'm good. But then after my kids were born, I started suffering from acne. It was really after Leo, my older son, was born, that I just kind of noticed it creeping up, getting worse and worse. Now, granted, in those years, like when I was first learning how to be a mother, I was kind of stressed out and not really watching my diet as well as I should have been. So, yeah, I was eating like more dairy, I was eating wheat, you know, bread, pasta, all of that. Like, I definitely gained some weight back, and like obviously being pregnant too didn't help that. So again, I started really looking at, you know, my diet again, reassessing. I did a bunch of elimination things, and I found that when I didn't eat any processed food, no dairy, no eggs, no wheat or gluten, because gluten is in other things other than wheat as well. Very little meat, basically no pork. I don't eat pork anymore. I only eat beef, like very occasionally. I'll eat some chicken here and there. I'll eat some seafood as well, but I try to avoid shellfish and like shrimp and things like that. I found that all of my skin issues cleared up like within a couple of months. And I did some detoxing in there as well, like with some herbs and doing celery juice and lemon water every morning. So anyway, all this to say is that I care really deeply, having had some of these difficult experiences with skin issues and other health issues in my life, in my early 20s basically, and like weight issues as well. I came to the realization that for me personally, I'm someone who's very sensitive, and I'm very affected by the chemicals and like the food additives that are put into our, you know, your typical packaged food in the grocery store. So now, unfortunately, living in Japan, it's a country that has a ton of packaged food, and it's all very tempting and good. And like I noticed when we moved back to Japan this time, I wasn't watching my diet so well, and like definitely the minute that I break off of my typical eating pattern, I will immediately, it'll show up in my face or my skin. That's how I know, something is wrong. I need to change what I'm eating. I don't claim to be perfect. I will have like ice cream once in a while, or, like if we're out, we might get some like tonkatsu, which is like a breaded, deep fried pork cutlet. But as much as possible, I really try to avoid all of these triggering foods, because for me personally, I can see the evidence like right away. Like if I've had a day of bad eating, I'll be feeling it for weeks later, and it takes a long time to heal myself from that. So unfortunately, Japan has a lot of food additives, even more than the typical processed foods in America. You should do your research about what kinds of things they're putting in packaged food. So basically, because of all these food additives, I really have to avoid basically everything in the grocery store. And I can't eat bread unless I make it myself using like gluten-free flours, which is very time consuming. There's not a lot of gluten-free. The gluten-free movement is not super big in Japan yet. I'm hopeful for the future that it will be. But there are some natural food stores here and there. There is one kind of close by here in Nara Prefecture that we can go to and get a lot of, safer packaged ingredients. Like there's organic, sauces and like dashi and other condiments and things like that. That are, like, for example, like egg-free, dairy-free mayonnaise, which I don't eat often, but here and there, maybe I need a little bit of it for something. But as a result, I would say both of my kids, they don't have any skin issues. By the time that, I was Leo's age, he's 7 now, I already was having like terrible eczema on my skin, and he doesn't have any issues. So I would say the way that we're eating is working for, at least the kids. And for me as well, as long as I'm being really careful with my diet. The problem is Japan is, I think it's no secret that Japan has to import a lot of its food because they simply don't have the space to grow, and this is mostly true for fruits, which are heavily imported here. Like as much as possible, I try to buy local fruits. Thankfully, that people here care about like where their food is grown, and so they always label like where it comes down to the prefecture. So like today we got some peaches from Wakayama Prefecture, which is south of Nara. And so I really do, whenever I get fruit at the store, I try to, as much as possible, to buy things that are locally or at least grown in Japan. And same with vegetables as well. And but it can be really expensive, especially fruit, because fruit here is pricey. Japan has a lot of weather issues. There's a long rainy season, which is hard to get a lot of good fruit to grow kind of during this June, end of May, June period. And this year, in fact, the rainy season was way longer. It started earlier and it lasted way longer. It just ended like recently, like a couple of days ago. So this year, a lot of people are complaining that, they're like, for example, the melons all died. Our melons died at the farm before they were ripe. The vines just like couldn't take all the rain. It's hard to get a lot of fruit here, and as a result, it's really expensive. So that is why I decided that I wanted to grow as much food as possible. Now this year, like we just moved back here, I never grew food when we lived here before. So I'm kind of counting this year as a learning year. I'm just trying to get a feel for what the growing seasons are like, what the weather patterns are like. So like I didn't go all out and try to grow every single thing this year, and we're only renting a small garden space. But in the future, my plan is we would like to get a house with some property so that we could have our own vegetable patch, or perhaps rent a field or something, a bigger field, and grow more of our own vegetables so that we don't have to deal with the pesticides, which also cause my skin to get bad. Yeah, I'm sensitive. So I want to be able to grow more of my own food and have more control over it. And same with fruit, because it's so expensive. Like basically the only way to really get enough fruit to sustain us is to grow it ourselves. So right now I've got a few citrus trees down there that I'm starting out. It takes those a couple of years to ripen. But yeah, my plan is in the future to have a lot more and to expand that out more. So that's definitely our end goal. Anyway, I hope this video was interesting for you, informative maybe, or maybe it will make you think about certain things too. Like, definitely read the packages wherever you go in the world. You gotta read the ingredients, because there's some really not good things for you in there. And, you know, I just think the more you know, the more you have control over your own life and your own circumstances. If you're suffering from health issues, it could really benefit and help you out. And, you know, you are what you eat. So let's be really healthy and eat good food. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of our adventures, we'd love it if you subscribed, liked, share, and enjoy. Until next time, bye!